We're now at public comment, and I see we have two constituents that have asked to address the board. So I'd like to call up Arthur Debut. Arthur, please come on up to the podium here. Oh, okay. So Jim Finnemore. Jim, welcome.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. And Happy New Year to you.
Okay, the green means go, right? All righty. Happy New Year, everybody. Glad to be here and see you guys are back and good. Survive the holidays. First of all, I would like to thank you guys for the prompt action you took on the concrete up here on 90th Avenue. You guys got right after that. I was real impressed with that. Thanks, Alan.
Well, it was mostly Bob.
Okay, Bob. Okay.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, appreciate it.
You bet.
And as I spoke before, I think you guys do a great job. And myself and my neighbor Art Debut, we're partners in crime. And we are only here to help you guys in whatever way we can and give suggestions for the district. And something that we've been going over and talking about is some things that, as suggestions, is as you guys spoke before when you were talking about the budget, was how great you guys do with your golf course, and you guys are in the black, where some of these golf courses, like in Arvada and stuff, are in the red. Is maybe you guys ought to offer your assistance and go over there and take over the management of it and operations, and help them with theirs. So that's a suggestion to add that to it, because I know you guys are partners with Arvada, Westminster, and Federal Heights, and also Thornton. So that you have a lot of clout there, I would say. I don't know if you guys were familiar with the Golden, how they do the lights over there on Clear Creek, but they do an excellent job, especially during the holidays. And I know that the lighting show you had up here in the parking lot, it seemed to be very successful. I've seen a lot of cars and families cruising through that, so I think that added a lot of joy to a lot of families here in the community. So kudos for that one. Yeah, but with taking in the consideration with Golden is, if you guys ever, don't know if you're familiar with it, but they do a great job on putting lights on the creek for a few blocks and in the parks. And as I mentioned before, for further development for the park to the south and west of Waterworld here, if we could, add lights to that would be great. And then I don't know if you're familiar with. Are you guys familiar with the Grippa Gardens over between Tennyson and Lowell in your? Well, that just so happens to be my father-in-law's family. So we're kind of got some inner workings here already. I don't know if you know Jerry personally, but you guys know Jerry? Grippa? Okay. Well, he's a great guy. If you ever get a chance to meet him, he's a real pleasurable person. The whole family is. But something we were wanting to point out is the potential that the Hyland Hills has is the sidewalks that go from basically Pecos here down the creek and all the way to I-25, past Huron. Did you guys put that? Was that the city of Federal Heights and the city of Thornton? City? Okay. Because I know that your boundaries go down to I-25. So with that being said, is Art and I have discussed that something would bring a lot of recognition to you guys, to Highland Hills, is the potential of what you have with this waterway. Is you could literally have trails that go from the South Platte River across through Adams County, through unincorporated, through Thornton, crossed under I-25, up the backside here, and then, we talked about a crossover or a cross under for pedestrians at 88th and Federal. Well, that could just be extended all the way over to where they call the downtown Westminster now, where the old Westminster Shopping Center used to be. And then that trail system, you could literally take it all the way over to Stanley Lake, west over to Indiana, and it could eventually end up at Coal Creek Canyon. And that would, you could have bicycling, you could have jogging, you could have walking, and also we brought up the fact that helping bring entertainment to senior citizens and to disabled and even, disabled vets, if you want to really go there. So we were talking that would be a great opportunity to open that up, and that system would, in turn, once you got to the South Platte, that could take you back to downtown Denver or all the way out to Fort Lupton, along as that develops. So you guys could be an intricate part of that. Let's see.
Jim, could I ask you a question?
Yes.
When you had said that we could bring value to the community if we offered some services or recreational services to seniors and veterans in the community. Can you give me an idea and the team an idea, like what activities would they find most beneficial, attend? Like if you guys have sat around and brainstormed and said, I wish we could have maybe lunches that are sponsored where we all get together or something like that. What are the ideas what's on the wish list for that?
Well, that could be very much part of it. What my thoughts were, and even Art's thoughts were, is that having a trail system, for example, if we just, the great grandiose potential I just said from South Platte to Coal Creek Canyon, that's the long-term part. I probably would never see that. But a short-term, if we took from Pecos to the west end of the property along the creek and the ponds and put in, large enough sidewalks to where we could have, say, golf carts, because to get the seniors and the handicapped out, because so many seniors, they're stuck in nursing homes, they're stuck at home, and they don't get out. And my thought is to get them out and get them to appreciate nature, get some fresh air, and see what is in the community. So that's the big thought is, and that even goes for the folks with disabilities, is to have a trail system that we could load 3 or 4 into a golf court, and then basically they may have a guide that would drive them up and talk about this is such and such pond, and give them a little bit of history and just get them outside, give them something to look forward to. I mean, I'm not no young chicken anymore, but I'm still able to get out and get about, thank God. But I know a lot of people that they don't get outside their doors. And we could go work with nursing homes to have, field trips, for not lack of better words, is to get them, sign up. You want to get out and go take a ride through the park. They can't walk it, but if we provided that service where we could put them in some golf carts, take them around, up and around, and back down, and just let them enjoy nature out here. You know, we've got geese, we've got ducks, we've got fox, all kinds of birds that, and wildlife that they could enjoy. They could even enjoy watching the people with their frisbee golf out there having a good time. So that's kind of the vision on that, is on the help of the seniors and the disability people. You know, and then taken back into Golden, I believe it was the Coors family bought some of the old cabins that are along the creek there. And so it's kind of an Old West style. If we could take and build a couple buildings along there along with the trail system to where they were coffee shops or, you know, a place to stop and, you know, just sit there and watch the geese on the lake. And it'd be like an Old West type environment. And this, how I mentioned before, is that this used to be a farm. It used to be a dairy. If we could go back to, instead of having all the park being 90% weeds over there, if we could go back to the natural grasses that would take less water, and it would also be able to, if you went back to the farm theme, farms pay a whole lot less in taxes than what city property, you know, developed property. So if we were able to say that that's, you know, we're farming it, we're baling hay on it, that would help you guys on the financial end of it. And like I said, some themed buildings down through there that look like a barn or a cabin or whatever, that they can go out there and get on a deck, sit there and watch the ducks and the geese. You know, they're going nuts in these retirement homes. Even they're going nuts in these seniors, you know, like Hyland Hills, or not Hyland Hills, but what's that place over there? The senior park. No. Holiday Hills, there you go. Holiday Hills, and even Monticello. You know, I got a neighbor over, just a friend of ours, George. He was stronger than probably any of us in the Stadgum building at one time. He was a real bull. He can't even get out of his house now. And he's right there. And, you know, if we had a way to get him out, give him some, you know, a reason to get out, that would work for George, and he's just a few blocks away. So I don't know if that gives you some input and some kind of thoughts of what we're thinking.
Jim, absolutely. So those are all things that this board, I can guarantee this board will continue to have those conversations about some of your ideas, and also how it fits into our strategic plan, which is starting to wrap up. We've been able to also talk to our consultants on the strategic plan and mention some of these ideas. This is a multi-year, multifaceted plan that you've come up and presented, and certainly a lot of different partnerships as well. You know, you've got the Platte River Trail, you've got the Clear Creek Trail, you've got the Platte River Trail goes all the way down to Littleton, all the way out to Chatfield. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to check into, and I guarantee you that we will keep that on our work here. And we appreciate you coming in.
Well, thank you. I have spoke. You know, Jason gave me his card, so I've visited with him, you know, a couple times, and about some of this also. And then one other thing is a major concern, and it's even, you know, it's a health concern. Is I don't know where you guys' property line ends down here by the apartments down here, Tuscany. But you come out of there about 25 or 35 feet, and you know the weeds are real high, and there's a lot of trash in all those weeds. And then dog feces is horrendous. They allow them to have animals down there. And so I was thinking is if we could figure out where the boundaries of where the apartment stops and you guys start, because I did already talk to the apartment manager down there and about the trash and the dog feces, and I said, that's just not healthy. And so anyway, if we could figure out where those property lines are, because he did say that he would take care of whatever his is, because I told him that I was going to be speaking with you guys. I didn't know where that boundary line was. So that's a big one right there.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Arthur, come on up. Welcome.
Arthur Dubuque, 9060 Rampart Street here in Federal Heights. A little background on me. I come out of the aviation industry, and I'm a bit of a visionary. I worked with the FAA, I worked with the manufacturers, the Cessna aircraft and Teledyne Continental Motors. So I'm a bit of a visionary myself. And looking at what Jim and I have been talking about, Hyland Hills Park and Recreation District is the keystone of this project because you cover such a wide area and there's so many different agencies that would be involved with this long-term project. Jim and I certainly won't be around to see it. I'm 83 years old, but you look ahead, and that's what we're proposing is, and the time to do it with what's going on, the development is now. We don't want to wait too long to start looking ahead because there's so many different agencies involved. I come to Federal Heights back in 1969, and I can remember when Pecos didn't exist. It wasn't through. And 92nd Avenue was nothing more than a paved two-lane cow path. Waterworld was a vision at that time, and I was on the volunteer fire department, and we used for training, we burned down some of the old buildings, the old farmhouse and everything, and one of the structures that was still remaining was the concrete silo, and a couple of gentlemen from Hyland Hills, I don't remember who they were, but they wanted us to burn that silo down, and I said, gentlemen, that silo is made out of concrete. Oh, what are we going to do with that? And I suggested, I'm going to brag, well, why don't you turn it into a lighthouse? You're going to have a water park. That silo would make a great lighthouse. And, well, that's what we got today. That's being a visionary, looking into the future. And Jim and I recognize that Hyland Hills Parks and Recreation District, you folks are the keystone on this vision that we have because you cover so many different areas. And you're going to have to bring all these different agencies together. And you folks are the ones that can make it happen. Thank you.
Arthur, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Hey, when you talk about history, in this month's, it's a local magazine called Yes, I think it is. And it had a great write-up on the history of Thornton, North Glen, where these were the major suburbs of Denver in the 1970s and 80s and so on. And so it was, if you have a chance to find one of these, grab it and just, there's a great history. And the author of the articles, grew up in the area, and told stories as a kid and things like that. So just a little bit about history that these gentlemen have been through here in this area.
Yeah, I will let you know that at 104th, where Hyland's East is now, when you went a little bit north of that, that's where I played Little House on the Prairie. It's because that's all it was. So yeah, the growth has been exponential.
All right. Introductions and presentations. We have Deputy Director Sherry Duran. And it looks like you have a sidekick as well.
All right, let me get this hooked in real quick. So while I'm getting the technology to fire up here, just want to take a moment. I think you've all had an opportunity to meet Sherry Duran, Security Manager here at Highland Hills. Absolutely an honor to be presenting her this evening, or introducing her this evening to you. As promised earlier, or I guess later in the 2023 year, that we would be doing a security presentation as we sailed into the new year, and that's what we're going to do tonight. So Sherry's going to cover all the things she's been working on. I think you're going to see that there's a very, she's had a very busy year. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sherry.
Maybe. Just a couple. That's right. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a pleasure to work at Waterworld. Having a lot of fun, and I'm learning a lot of great things about Highland Hills. And I would like to start, we will start about our security updates and what we have been doing. So the overview of when I first got here, I took a holistic approach to security for Highland Hills and trying to find ways to safeguard our organization. After analyzing the security issues at Waterworld, our other facilities, as well as our parks, we strategized and we came up with some ideas. Because of my extensive background in law enforcement, I was able to, which helped me at this position, to come up with some things for Waterworld and our other areas in Highland Hills. So one of the first things we did is we did a active shooter training drill. That involved 13 law enforcement agencies from around our area. It was called the Waterworld Critical Incident, and we had over 300 participants in that. So we had Federal Heights, Thornton, Brighton, Commerce City, Adams County, Federal Heights. Police and fire were involved. One of the other things we did is, I'm sure everyone here has heard of run, hide, fight. That terminology has changed to evade, evacuate, and defend. We were able to roll that out to all of our full-time staff at all of our facilities, as well as here at the administration building. Some of the other things that we've done, we've had several SWAT team training here at the administration building, as well as inside of Waterworld. We've also had SARDOC, search and rescue training. They're search and rescue dogs of Colorado. They've also been here to train at Waterworld. We also had a multi-agency canine training event for the North Metro Denver area. We hosted that here at Highland Hills. I'm not sure how many agencies were here, but I will tell you there were quite a few. We took up the majority of the west side of that parking lot and down all the way to 90th. So it was pretty big. And the reason, my vision for that, and my vision for having all these trainings here, is to introduce all the law enforcement agencies to Highland Hills and say, hey, we're here, and get them familiar with our park. In case of a critical incident that they would be responding to. So they would take ownership here or any of our other facilities and say, hey, we train there, that's our place. Let's go. So that is one big reason. And to get them familiar, because I worked, or retired, I should say, 25 years at Adams County, and I probably came once, had the time. So they're pretty busy, so I don't know how many times they actually get to come and visit our park. So I think these trainings are nice to familiarize them with what we have here. Because, and my thought is, it takes minute, maybe, to drive down Pecos, and you really don't understand how many people are in here or how big we really are without coming in here. So that is one of my biggest reasons for that. Some of the other projects that we have in progress here for Highland Hills, we are installing cameras in the parking lot. And in hopes, I believe we have 14 cameras going in. We're also integrating other cameras to that system, and we're planning on having a dispatch center. So instead of having people patrol the park all day, some of those analytics on those cameras will alert us. We'll probably have one person in the parking lot to go and check out any suspicious activity. We've also put in advanced security systems at the entrance, the security checkpoint. I'm pretty sure that you've all probably seen that. We have evolved weapons detection system with artificial intelligence, as well as bag screening x-ray machines with artificial intelligence. And I'll show you those a little bit later on in my presentation.
Sherry, can I ask you a question about the cameras?
Yes.
I know I had got a constituent email about having cameras installed at the golf course parking lot because there was a lot of theft of theft out of that parking lot. Is that in the plans at all?
We are having those talks. We are trying to see what financially makes sense, what systems we want to put in. And eventually, the system that we have, that we are putting in, eventually we're trying to integrate what we already have, and we can add. So if we were to add something at the golf course, it would feed into the system, and then that would go back to our dispatch center, the person who's watching the cameras, to be able to see that. And for those kinds of issues, and they could potentially call the police if they were to see anything in progress with that.
Thank you.
So a lot with our strategic planning, we heard that people want to visit our parks, they're in our parks, but that they also want to feel safe when they're in our parks. So that prompted us to, we were talking about creating a park ranger program, and I have created the operations manual and the policies for that program. I visited other parks and recs and spoken to park rangers and have a great idea of what they do and what our park rangers will do if we were to implement that program. We also have emergency action plans in final draft for all of our facilities and parks. I've also done on-site facility assessments at all of our different facilities within Highland Hills, and I've walked through with the managers along with police. And we've went through there and talked about issues and coming up with plans for emergency action plans for those facilities as well. I'm also planning critical incident drills for other facilities. Right now, we have one that we're going to be scheduling for the ice center. We had it scheduled in December, but there was a lot of conflicting schedules, so we weren't able to make it happen, but that will be coming soon. I also created an emergency action plan, kind of a short sheet for our coaches, our field managers, and our park rangers. Just something that they can have on hand, what to do in emergency, when to call the police, or just kind of a cheat sheet in case they have any emergencies while they're on the field or inside of any of our facilities. Upcoming for 2024, we have our very own Scott here that works at Waterworld, the maintenance manager. He teaches Stop the Bleed, and he can also certify people with CPR. So we're planning on rolling that out to all of our Highland Hills full-time managers. Stop the Bleed, and the CPR certification. We're also planning another emergency critical incident training drill here at Waterworld. So we did the first part of that drill. The second part looks like it's going to be a reunification drill. So we still have the 100 volunteers. I'm going to try to include parents as well as the whole staff to, in case there was a critical incident here, how would we put these children back with their parents? So just to have that drill so everybody knows what that looks like, because that, if that were to happen here, we have a lot of people, a lot of kids, and we'd have to figure out how to reunite them all together. So moving on to our next slide. This is one of the pictures that we took of all of this was our morning briefing before we began our drill in last April. So it was quite, from what I've heard from all of the chiefs and the agent or chiefs from around here, is that was the biggest drill that they have seen, maybe even in Colorado, that we put together here. So everybody was very impressed. We've got a lot of accolades for that drill. Of course, I had to put Adams County SWAT team because they came in and took care of the problem, and those are my old partners. So I had to put them in my presentation. Yes. So this is one of our security checkpoints. We have 2 of them at the entrance of Waterworld. We are going to be reimagining that front entrance to make it look a little bit better. We're going to move the tents back so they're not so compacted up to the stairs, and we've got a lot of plans to run the wiring and make it look a lot better. But that right there is the tent that held our Evolve system and our x-ray machines. So my Waterworld security team, we had a lot of diversity. I'm really happy and pleased with the job that they did. They did a really good job. Some of them come from security backgrounds. We had one gentleman who worked at the airport and also up at the casinos. We also had one that was worked at we had actually 2 that worked at the Broncos Stadium, but one that was a security supervisor for over 30 years on our team. We also had a little mixture of everybody in there. We also had some kids that we were trying to mentor into security. If you look at the screen, the right bottom, her name is Christelle. She was one of our park safeties. I mentored her, and she is now working for Adams County Sheriff's Office, and she's slated to attend an academy, a police academy there when she turns 21.
That's
So,
excellent.
Yep.
Sherry, are the same individuals who are on the Waterworld security team, were they also providing security at the events at Clear Creek Park?
Yes.
Some of them, okay, yeah, they were
Yes.
great at Clear Creek Park.
Yep.
Very professional at those events, so thank you for
Thank you.
putting those people there too.
Yep. So that brings us to our next slide. There's a security team at Clear Creek Park for our summer concert series. They also have done security at the golf course in the parking lot when we had our Halloween nights. I have a few of them that I can call at any time that will provide security. We also had them for our flag football when they did their last game, their championship game. We were there, and I did have to eject a few players out of the park that day. But they're a great team. They're very passionate about keeping Hyland Hills our guests safe. And that's what I'm looking for, that I'm looking for people who are not just looking for a job, but are very passionate about keeping our guests and our employees safe. We got a lot of information from Federal Heights Police that we had a huge reduction of crime in the parking lot. And, but I think a lot of that is the color of authority, just being present out there. They're seeing our guys in security uniforms in their security vehicles that are marked security. So I think that has a lot with, and of course, not being afraid to ask them what they're doing when they're walking through or being suspicious. We had we've had that and we dealt with it. So our police department was very happy because they only have probably 2 people on duty. And if we're calling them for issues and they have other issues going on in the community, so we were able to take care of a lot of that here ourselves. So one of the ways I wanted you to see was that people are getting real creative on how they are bringing in alcohol. That is an IV, and I believe they had tequila in there. So, and that actually was found, they were searching a bag for something else and came across this. Because that will not come up. It's a clear plastic bag. This is our Evolve system. Evolve can handle 2,000 people walking through in 1 hour. It's pretty, if you guys can see it, pretty much they're at the airports, they're at all of the game venues, sports venues, malls, you're seeing them. Dick's Sporting Goods has them. And they're pretty much an invasive security way to check people for weapons. So that's what it looks like. What happens is when our guests walk in, they place their bags and their coolers on the x-ray belt to go through the x-ray machine. Then they walk through the Evolve system. This one picked up and he had a pocket knife on him. So it draws a box around and then we ask them if they have anything in their pocket. And of course he had a pocket knife. At that point he can choose to throw it away or take it to his car. I believe this lady was trying to sneak in some alcohol under her towel or bag. This is one of the items. We actually found 2 brass knuckles that were detected from the x-ray machines. And we turned those over to the police. Here's alcohol that was picked up through the x-ray machine.
Were they trying to hide it, or did it just or was it in the cooler?
It was in the cooler, so every bag and cooler goes through, and it does, you can see, I don't have a picture of what it shows, but you could see the shape, like little shooters. You could see the shape of those come up on the screen, and you can see, so what it would come up like, let me go back one. So we would be looking at a screen, and it would draw a box around it. And that's as well, that happens on the x-ray machine too, well.
When you find them, do they go, oh, sorry? Like, I know not to take glass to a swimming pool. Like, the very first thing I think is, don't take glass. And then the next thing is, or alcohol.
Right.
But glass is always the first thought.
Yes. And we have to explain to them, because none of them are going to drop that and have a bunch of glass around for the little kids. But we tell them, we don't allow glass or alcohol for that matter. You can take it, you can throw it away or take it back to your car. And they get quite upset because they say, we sell alcohol here. And I said, that's true, but you can only buy 3 drinks here, and we have no way of telling how many drinks you're having. If you bring in alcohol and it's a water park, you could drown. It's for your safety. So everything that we do is for their safety or the safety of others. And most of the time, they comply with that pretty well. Those are a bunch of Jell-O shots that were picked up, more glass, more alcohol, knives. So my team is trained that if they were to bring in a watermelon, if they see a watermelon, we ask them how they plan on cutting that watermelon. So, but lots of glass, lots of alcohol. And these are our cameras that we're going to be, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. I skipped ahead. Guest feedback was consistently positive throughout the summer. Guests indicated that they felt safer with our approach and appreciated the investment in technology and the team members dedicated to the security process. Guests frequently mentioned that the arrival process was much more quicker and more detailed than in previous years. Now there's our parking lot camera. So we're going to be installing 14 of these outside. We've already have our caissons in the parking lot. Our poles were delivered last week, so we just need to get on the calendar to have them installed. But that's what they'll be looking like.
Better resolution than ringtones or?
Yeah, they do have all of those that we could set up. Yeah, we could.
And then if I'm understanding it, there's a separate agency that's going to be monitoring the cameras for us. Is that right?
No, it'll be me at first until we hire someone to watch them.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
internally we'll be watching
Yes.
the cameras.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not like you have alarm companies and they're off-site and then they call you and it's going to be on-site,
Yep.
our staff that's
Yes.
monitoring the feeds.
Yep. And I think I'm going to be able to monitor them through here, and then we're also going to have a place set up in the park. So when we're open, that security will monitor that. And if they see something, a lot of those cameras are pretty enhanced to be able to zoom in. We're going to have a few of those cameras out there along with license plate readers. So we'll be able to, they'll be able to send somebody out there if there's anything that they think is.
Wouldn't it be cool if one of the cameras could shoot like a string of water? And say, we see you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Kind of like when you have a cat or a dog doing something
Yep.
they shouldn't do and you squirt them.
Yep.
Do we have signs up that remind people, please lock your cars, check the valuables, and so on? Because again, we can record all the license plates we want and so on, but you all know that property crimes are the lowest priority for police departments.
Yes.
So people have to protect their own property by locking their car, putting it out of sight, and covers the big valuables and so on. So any reminders we can put in parking lots to remind our guests?
Yes, we are planning on doing that on those poles. Yes, we're going to plan to put those up on those poles to put reminders like that. But you'd be surprised on how many times that I find a car door open because mom's frazzled, trying to get everybody in, trying to get everything, get the kids, get all their stuff that they're bringing in. And when we do sweeps of the parking lot in the morning, we find, we routinely find car doors open, purses just sitting right there. I mean, and if I see them at the end of the day, my staff is trained just to lock the door and close it. And we see them later. We tell them, Miss, you left your car door open and your purse, we let them know. We try to tell them that they did that. So, yeah, and I get it. They're busy. Kids are probably in a hurry. They have to get in line and go through that whole process.
Sherry, thank you so much for your presentation, and not just your presentation, but for all the work, the background information, the professionalism that you've brought to our safety and security. It's a really, really great job that you've done to keep us all up to date and safe, and I appreciate it. We appreciate it.
And
Thank
you
you.
for bringing your experience and professionalism to the district.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you very much for having me.
A quick question. Is there going to be another critical incident event at Waterworld this year?
Yes, but I believe we were supposed to have a meeting this week. We just canceled it. The chief of Federal Heights wants to put it off another week because of some conflicting schedules, but we're in the early talks of that.
Are there any tentative dates set? Okay.
But it may just be a reunification drill, because he expressed that he wanted to see that, to see how that would run in the event that something happened at one road, what our plan was. So it may be that portion of the drill, I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sherry, Jeffco Schools is the gold standard for safety and security in the school systems, and reunification is a big part of that. If you would like to talk to Jeff Pearson, he's a friend of mine. You bet. All right, we're moving on to the treasurer's report, looking for a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors of Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve the November 2023 Treasurer's Report as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Yes, Skylar and I connected this afternoon, and he's just gonna make a couple revisions. In the blue section, there was a formula error. And he's gonna change the description to, it says Highland Hills net including capital. He's gonna make it Highland Hills net less capital, basically capital spend. The 22 year-to-date number's correct. The 23 year-to-date, actual's correct. The year-to-date budget number had a formula problem. The number should be negative 1,145,044. Well, okay.
So
Which version? I'm looking at what Nicole sent out on Friday. So if you have a more current version.
Yeah, a corrected version is in your packet. I just haven't changed that title there yet.
Thank you, Skylar.
Skylar, on the other one up in interest and other expenses, the variance for governmental funds, the difference of the 618, if I remember correctly, isn't that because there's an admin cost allocated to the governmental fund now versus past?
No, that's timing of our debt payment.
Is it?
Yeah, so we accounted for that in December, but the payment was actually due December 1st, so it hit November instead of December.
Okay.
That's just a timing thing.
And of course, we know the increase, the variance to budget for administrative is due to the interest income being so much larger this year versus the original plan, given 5% interest rates on
Yep, correct.
cash. Okay. That's all I have.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Any other comments? All right.
Mike covered it all.
Good job, Mike. And Skylar and Yvonne and Mike. All right, let's, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the December 12th board meeting?
I move that the Board of Directors of Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve the minutes of the board meeting of December 12th, 2023 as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the minutes? Must be a football game tonight. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Nicole, any communication and correspondence to the board?
No, sir.
Thank you. Yvonne, you're up with the project tracker.
Thank you, Mr. President. So if you all will move to item 5 on the project tracker, the first update is the Park and Recreation Master Plan Committee. Just wanting to let you know that the Sherwood project is primarily complete. If any of you have been down there to see it, the play equipment is in place. We know that the shelter was delayed, so we do expect that that will be delivered in February, and we are kind of in a holding pattern for the base of the play area, so that's going to be poured in place on the bottom. That's kind of that spongy landing area for the kids. So we unfortunately didn't have the components in place due to damaged shipping on one of the items. While the weather was good, now that the weather's turned, we can't pour it in place until the weather is cooperative with us there. So we are kind of in a holding pattern on the flooring there. And again, like I said, the shelter is due, should be being delivered next month. The complex project is really moving along nicely. If you have driven by there, you'll see all the fields are stripped and the turf is, the materials are in the parking lot now. So I'm not sure when that'll start going down, but again, it's moving along nicely with the project. We did ask the board to consider approving the same vendor to do the drainage work, which is another component of that project over there. So that's on your agenda for this evening. Moving on.
And I think, were you able to figure out a tour date for us, for the board, for the sports complex?
I'm going to guess it's probably going to be somewhere around late February, early March, you think, Alan? Once the turf gets down?
Yeah, if you want to see a finished product, it would be mid-March. If you want to see it kind of happening, we need to schedule that sooner. So you guys let us know what you want.
I will ask my board members separately what they would like.
Margaret, what are you thinking?
I would like to know, well, so this is the project that was a couple $1 million, right? I would like to see how it's been spent over like maybe an interim and then a final. Just out of curiosity and understanding, because this is the first turf replacement project that we're doing and looking at and seeing if this is successful, then what else we convert. Whatever will give me more insight as a board member to make future decisions is the tour that I would like.
So is that a tour that maybe individual board members could set up with Alan?
Well, we can certainly do that for those interested in kind of seeing the construction methods, things like that. It's kind of cool. I like that stuff. Maybe you guys do, maybe you don't. I think seeing it finished probably is what it's all about. But for those who want to see it in process, please let me know.
Okay, so I think I'm hearing the finished product would be the preference from my other board members, and then we could set up separate dates for those of us who want more.
Margaret, I'm just thinking we don't have to set up an extra board meeting then?
Yep.
So people could absolutely go on their own with, or even in pairs, to go meet with Alan and take a field trip. I'm interested in that, I just don't want to call another board meeting. So I might set up my own tour with Alan,
Understandable.
and then wait until March when it's finalized to get that on the calendar?
Absolutely.
Another option might be to schedule a 4:30 start time for the February board meeting. It should still be light outside at 4:30 in February, I think. If you guys want to go see it while it's in progress, we can meet over there, kind of like what we did with the Sports Center project. And then it's not a separate board meeting, so that's something we can do as well.
I would like some more information on it, but I don't want to make anybody else go out in the cold.
All right, I'm kind of hearing that people would like to do it individually in the cold or not in the cold.
Okay,
All right, we'll stick with individual, I guess.
and then we'll have a finished tour as a team.
Correct. And you have that for our wrap-up?
Right now.
Awesome.
Number one.
Number one.
Okay, if there were no more questions on that item, we'll move to item 6, which is the fencing around the golf course property. That project is expected to complete this week, so we're very pleased with the contractor on that, and everything has worked out very well, I believe, with the homeowners as well.
And weather cooperated for the whole, for the most part, so far this weekend, yeah.
Yeah.
That crew was awesome. They came over, they talked to us, they went around, they toured, they worked really hard. Dustin and his crew should be complimented.
Yeah, I was worried about this one, the PR piece. 120 neighbors, trying to get that right, but we had a few little hiccups, but nothing major.
No, it turned out well.
But to my knowledge, no lost dogs, no lost kids, couple cut cable lines, and I got an email today on a board, some we would like replaced, which makes sense. So a few punch list items left and about 120 feet to go.
Great, thank you.
That's excellent.
Moving on to item 8, which is the restaurant leases. We did have the final version of the vendor's lease, and then we got a little email from the city, and there seems to be a little bit of disagreement on their side. So I'm not quite sure, Skylar, if we got any update today. We were hoping that that would be approved by the city in February. Maybe it still can be. Okay, so we'll keep you posted on that. Moving on to...
I do have, anything material that the city of Westminster is objecting to?
No, it has to do with the renewal clause. And so we have the 5-year with the base rents built in, and then there was an ask for some kind of assurance that the next lease, if there was a renewal, would be somewhat similar to the lease terms. And so it was the language in there that, and now what I'm hearing is that the staff maybe was concerned about it, but their legal was not. So it's not, I don't think it's a big deal.
Okay, not material.
Moving on to item 9, and this is one that is an interesting one, and I think that we need to talk about with the Berkeley Hills Park neighborhood. So we had some of our staff go and meet with the group that was very interested in trying to create a historical designation. So my understanding is, and I'm going to look at the guys over here if I leave anything off, but they are working on a grant application to do some historical fact-finding about the site. We would have to sign off on it. We've seen kind of a draft of the grant, and there are some things in there that give us a little bit of pause. There are people involved in the grant writing that are not necessarily neighbors in that area, but friends of neighbors in the area. So we think it's really important that we have another community meeting down there before this grant application goes out. So certainly they have to have our approval, sign off on that application. But again, our concern is that it's kind of coming from a select group of people and maybe not certainly the whole group that we've already spoken with, much less the greater neighborhood area. So we will work on trying to get that meeting scheduled because we think it's important to get more community involvement in that process.
Who would be providing the grant to?
Was it through the state, Bob?
Yeah, it was connected. There's several layers, but in the end of the day, I believe it was the State Historical Society was kind of the top layer.
And then, I can't remember the gentleman's name, it was,
Greg Alcaro is the neighbor down there that's
Is he
been
driving
passionate
the
about
effort?
is he what?
is Greg Alcaro driving the
Yes,
effort?
yes.
Okay, and then what you're saying is the other people that he's brought in do or do not live in the area?
Some of them may not live in the area, correct? Some of the other people that are associated with the grant application.
Yeah, it sounds like that may be the case.
Do we know what their interest is then? Why are they interested in that?
I believe that they are associates of Greg's. I think one of them is a landscape architect or has some landscape architect background. This person, I believe, was a candidate for Westminster City Council at one point, not the last election, but I think in a previous election. So I'm not really sure what the interest is, other than they have expertise in landscape architecture.
Okay.
Being nice.
Yeah.
They're being nice.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So they're providing maybe guidance to him?
Yeah, I think,
To Greg?
right.
Yeah, okay, got it.
And I appreciate the district taking their due diligence to see, do our neighbors really want this grant?
Yeah.
Is that something that they all want? Is it just something that a few of them want? And how we can support the entire neighborhood and not just a few.
So we're talking about having one of our next meetings down there again?
Yeah, I think we need to reach out to the community and kind of, maybe we'll do another thing with the QR codes and kind of get the interest about whether they want to come here, whether they want us to go back down to Carl Park. But I think what's really key is getting as many people that live around that park, not just the immediate people, but as many people in that neighborhood as we can. We kind of threw around the ideas, and maybe it would be just a separate community meeting with some kind of cookies and punch or ice cream social or something. We found that that was the most successful way to get people to an event, is to get a little snack as a treat. So we want to be able to work on that, setting up the meeting to get as many people there as possible, because it really is a bigger area than just the people that live on that block around the park.
Is the grant time sensitive?
I don't know the answer to that. Steve Hager was really kind of diving into it. What I can tell you is there's some aspects of it that are incomplete. So that may be one part of it. I know that they're kind of pushing this through, but I'm not sure what the actual deadline is. I'm not sure that I recall seeing one.
Yeah, there were a number of questions that Steve had from what he saw of portions of the application that were incomplete, which of course we're not going to sign off on anything that's not complete, that we understand everything that's in the application. So we can follow up on that, Don.
I would recommend we meet down there, get the most people we can, hear from everybody that would like to come.
I would recommend that whoever headed up the PR campaign for the fence also head up that campaign based on the recent success.
Well, I would also say that there was not a dispute, but different feelings on which way to move. Some neighbors really wanted the pond, and other ones really wanted to get rid of the mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. So we got mixed messages.
Correct.
Are we aerating the water letter?
So yeah, there is a solar bee down there that works off solar and turns the water over a little bit. It's not probably the most efficient use, one of those type of systems, but that was done, and there was, every 3 weeks, there was mosquito treatments throughout the summer. I didn't hear as much about mosquitoes this year as we have in years past. Maybe it helped, so.
Yvonne, that's it for the tracker? Thank you. Allison, attorney's report.
There is a legal report in your board packet. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
It talks about a lease purchase agreement between the district and PNC Bank for golf cart GPS equipment.
Mm-hmm.
How much are we talking? Can't we just buy them and avoid interest expense?
Yeah, Mike, thanks for, so what happens with these lease agreements is they're tied to, like data plans, a whole bunch of other things, kind of ongoing costs. Kind of like a cell phone. So there's two primary options out there. We demoed them both. The one that played nice with our cart, I want to say, so it can disable it, do some things like that. And they were both very, very comparably priced within thousands of each other. We chose that, so we kind of vetted it real well, and that is how they sell it. So if you want it, that's how you do it. So.
And I would say, being in the vendor finance industry, leasing to municipalities, that PNC probably is the financing partner for that vendor, and that's how they go to market. And if you want the product, then you lease it and you bundle it.
I'd say that's pretty spot on, because That was the proposal, and we asked about purchase, and it was not an option.
Any other questions for Allison?
I did have, what do we do for colorblind pickleball players? Like, what is the remedy for that?
That was an interesting issue that came up, and it really depends on the individual player's condition. Not all color blindness is the same. So we kind of went back to him. I don't know, Skylar, you might want to take this over, but we went back to him with some ideas, such as glasses, special glasses, for
Yep.
seeing the lines. The initial idea was, can you repaint all the lines? And we thought, there might be some other strategies here that are less expensive and more specific to the player.
Yeah, we've reached out to the gentleman who brought this to our attention, and we're trying to schedule a meeting for sometime in the next couple of weeks to really understand his needs and what he's looking for us. So
Yeah.
we'll have a
that's
better report after a couple of weeks.
I did try on the colorblind glasses that if you have the rods and cones in your eyes, just not the wavelengths, that it does work. I'm not colorblind, but the person who was I was testing them, and I'm like, is that green or red? And he would go, that's green, that's red. So there are options. Interesting. And he plays pickleball. That's why they're stacked.
But colorblind goes a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
It's not just red and green. There's lots of different situations. We had a student one time that wanted us to change all of our fluorescent lighting throughout the entire school. We said no.
That's a reasonable denial.
All right, old business. All right, new business. Resolution looking for a motion for the meeting schedule for the calendar year.
I move that the Board of Directors of Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve the resolution of the meeting schedule for calendar year 2024 and designated posting locations for notices of regular and special meetings as such resolution is written.
Second.
Discussion?
Question, get first time through on this, so bear with me. How come the third meeting of the third week isn't listed on the calendar? And then they're listed, and then if it's not needed, then removed.
So we decided this year that we would go ahead and schedule all of the first meetings, because we've kind of been in a pattern of just one meeting a month. Go ahead and schedule those meetings, and then if we need to add a second meeting, we will add it at another board meeting.
Okay.
Does that seem more efficient than canceling 12 meetings?
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that would be considered a special meeting.
Correct.
I would like to suggest that in addition to the dates, that we consider designating the locations as well. And the reason I say that is because when we first joined the board, we were going to rotate the meetings, but we haven't done that last year. And going through the locations that we haven't met at Baker Recreation Center. We haven't met at FIT. And now we can meet at the Sports Center at Carol Butts. We haven't met at Cottonwood Lodge. And so maybe we could rotate, like next month we go to Baker Recreation Center. And then we come back to admin, and then Carl Park, and then Sports Center, and then admin, then FIT, then Ice Center, then admin, so that we all get a sense of the facilities that we have within the district. So in addition to setting the dates for the first Tuesday of the month, we set the locations. Thoughts?
Well, we have met at the Cottonwood Lodge, I believe, at least once, if not twice, but,
Did it, was,
yeah.
oh, that one.
Fit's maybe not the greatest place to have a meeting, depending on how busy the place is at. You know, it might be tough to find a spot to conduct a meeting, but I think there's some benefit to have some consistency in a place to have a meeting, you know, in a regular spot, but also it makes sense at times to go on the road, like the discussion we just had for, you know, the Berkeley Park situation. I don't think it makes sense to always be on the road. I guess that's my thought, you know, if it fits, it fits. If it doesn't always, don't try to force it.
I might offer up as well that we have our new streaming of the meetings dialed in here at this building. So these meetings are all being, like right now, this meeting is being live streamed, so everybody can watch it. If we take that on the road, we won't have that same ability. So just want to make sure that that's out there for consideration as well.
So then if we do change locations to different facilities within the district, it might be more appropriate to do it at the special meetings because because there's the reliance on the live streaming for these meetings that are now taking place.
Yeah, and I maybe would throw out for the board to consider, if you guys want to go on the road, maybe it's more similar to what Westminster does, that certain dates you're going to be, some of you will be up at FIT for just a drop in and talk to a board member discussion, kind of these open forums where you're having that interaction with the community rather than having a special meeting. Because I would say with the exception of the Carl Park meeting, when we've moved our meetings around, we don't generally get a lot more people to attend those meetings. Whereas if you're inviting them to come in and talk to you, just have discussions, very casual discussions where you're not conducting board business, that might be a more effective way to get you guys out in the facilities, get people to come and interact with you. And I can't, Warren, you'll have to remind me what they're called, the Westminster, I know you went to some that the Westminster was doing.
Yeah, they have a new one coming up. It's called a town hall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that might be a way to kind of accomplish what you're looking for, Margaret, in terms of getting out in the community, but then actually having it be a more conversational thing with community members.
Yeah, and Dawn, your point is well taken. Like the FIT, I guess we just have to set up tables in the Pilates room or something.
I think Yvonne had a good idea too, that, you know, that open forum concept to go out into some of the other buildings and have that conversation with folks might be a good opportunity to get out into some of the other facilities.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing a couple things. One is we'd like to possibly take the show on the road, but it might be more in a town hall format, and it might be more on the special meetings time. And then that's something that we could work with the district on setting those dates up, but primarily trying to keep the first Tuesday of the month to be in this building. That's kind of what I'm hearing?
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe, and maybe this, you know, this is a board request, is to ask Yvonne to come up with some potential sites or dates for town halls, and we could bring that back and kind of look at it and see where we are.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, I'm thinking maybe if you do quarterly, so we'll do one in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, we'll get those at 4 different locations. We'll have the opportunity with our marketing communications team to really get that message out to the community. I think it would be a good way to try it and see if it works.
Yeah, I agree. I think quarterly's good. You guys all right with that? Mm-hmm. All right. Any other discussion on the board meeting dates? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion to adopt the 2024 budget.
I move that the Board of Directors of Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve the resolution to adopt the 2024 budget as written. Did I read the right thing?
Second?
Yeah, okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Staff, do you have any revisions to the numbers in the resolution? Resolution to adopt budget, yes, the first
Yes.
one.
Thank you. Yes, Mike, so on the first page, after I think you and Skylar and Margaret kind of went through that, the first page, the only change will be that sources other than general tax number will now be $33,715,870. So the total revenues will be $42,751,344. I had put the mill levy money in there, kind of taking that out of there twice or put it in there twice.
So, can you repeat that, Mike, because I lost
Yep,
my.
so the first page,
Yep.
so it's a resolution to adopt budget. Under the revenue source, revenue funds, general tax from sources other than general tax, $33,715,870. The property tax levy stays the same at $903,574. The new total is $42,751,344.
Okay. Doesn't the expenditures change that 66 million?
66,217,445?
Right,
No, that has not changed.
because in the budget, it says reserves and contingencies, the 23 estimate was 1.7 million, the 24 budget has 27 million. So that means we'd have a deficit of $20 million in the 2024 budget.
Now, which budget are you going off of to get the first figure, Mike? That, the September one we presented?
No, the one that was in our desks this evening.
Can I ask a favor? Can you direct us to where you're at, Mike, so that we are all on the
Okay,
same page?
page 9.
Page 8 and 9 are the two that he's probably looking at. The summary pages, Margaret.
Okay, page 9.
You see under enterprise expenses, and you have the comparison of 22, 23 estimate, and 24 budget. And the one number that looks out of whack is reserves and contingencies. 1.4 million for 22, 1.7 million for 23, and 27 million for 24. That's where the out of balance is, which creates a $20 million deficit, but that's not what we're spending. We're not spending $27 million here.
But we're moving it to reserves and contingency, so it's a cash basis.
But
So,
there's no cash moving, going
Well-
out the door. There's no cash going out the door.
there's cash changing funds.
That's
So
different than an expense.
the difference, you're exactly right, Mike. The difference in those numbers, why that's such a big difference is that we have to budget to a zero amount. So because we start with a balance carried forward, which you can see on page 8, the $23 million, that number, because we have to budget to zero, that number ends up being carried into reserves and contingencies and added to those dollars.
Why don't we see that in the 23 numbers? Help me understand.
Because 23, you don't have to budget, well, when we did the 23 budget, it had to budget to zero. So the 23 budget did look like this, but then when we were doing the comparisons year over year, you do the actuals for 23. And then when you move it into the 24 budget, you have to plug that number back in there to get that budget to zero. So the responsibility for the district is to budget to a zero balance. Does that
Even though
make
that's
sense?
not the, yes, I understand policy versus application.
Right.
Okay.
So we are showing that 23 million carried forward and then being spent when really it's just the reserves.
Okay, because in the Black Book budget, it didn't have that plug number.
Right, when we meet with you all in the fall,
Yeah.
we bring it to you as a zero-based budget so that you have a clear picture of what the operational year looks like.
Okay.
The adjustment for this plug figure is done at the very end.
Okay, I can understand the administrative aspect. Okay, so I tried to triangulate all these numbers and tell me, and again, I'm just gonna do this in millions, and tell me if I have this reasonably close. Net governmental and enterprise revenues less expenses, somehow, we're gonna generate about 10 million of positive cash flow. 10 million, good guy. We're gonna spend 5 million out the door in CapEx and 5 million of debt, principal, and interest payments. So net cash flow for '24, we're basically looking at zero change. In my ballpark numbers here, right, because I grabbed the debt P&I off the resolutions, I grabbed the CapEx off the resolutions, and then I had to back into the net income number based on this binder, that book, and it swags.
So I will tell you that what we are budgeting for a net surplus is just a little under $1 million for next year's operations.
Okay.
But again, those numbers need to get plugged in, so we're at zero at the end.
So, and with that net surplus, just so that I'm keeping it straight in my head, that also includes capital expenditures.
Correct.
And what are our capital expenditures for that, to keep that net million of $1 million net surplus? Do you have that number?
I think that's on your second resolution.
Yeah, it's on the second resolution.
So we've got,
So I see capital.
so about $5 million.
5 million.
Yep.
Okay.
That's what you just said too, Mike, right? Five?
Yeah, but my revenues less expenses. Expenses didn't include capital because that's not in finance, that's not an operating activity. So that's where it was 10 million from operations, positive. Spend 5 million to that 10 million CapEx, and then spend another 5 million servicing debt. So at the end of the day, back to your comment, we're gonna have a surplus of a slightly less than $1 million after all the bills are paid.
And we,
24.
and we make capital investment of 5 million.
No.
Yes.
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 So where's my math wrong? So net income, revenues less expenses, excluding CapEx, expenses are pay the bills to run the operations.
So, Mike, when you're saying, so I understand, when you're saying net revenues, so let's talk about the revenue lines. So when we're saying net revenues, you're saying revenues include general government revenues, which are property tax, and then the revenues from all the enterprise funds.
Yeah, approximately 46 million.
Yeah, so our net revenues, which 9 million come from property taxes and 34 million come from enterprises, is 46 million, and then our expenses.
Actually, that's helped me out here.
Okay.
Because my backing in the numbers, again, I only came up with, no, thing on here. Okay, so 9 million governmental and 37 million between enterprise and ICE Arena.
I don't I've done this calculation, I don't have it in front of me, where I do all the revenues.
Okay, because if I look on page 9, you can see total enterprise revenues of 33.2.
That's enterprise, so if we add 9 million to that, that gives us 42 million in revenues, because you have to add the taxes.
Yep,
So-
yep.
So we're 42 million in revenues. Then we go to enterprise expenses, and if we adjust that for the 57 million minus the reserves and contingencies, I don't have a calculator, so I don't know what that is, but then that will give us the enterprise expenses, and then we have to get the enterprise expenses or the general government expenses to that. I'm thinking at the end of the day, when we get all of that together, that's about 6 million, and then 5 million of that is for capital expenditures, leaving us a net surplus of 1 million, give or take. So we could plant more trees with that or add to our surplus.
Again, it's like I said, I've been doing these back of the envelope, so I guess if staff could prepare a summary schedule for all the board members here so we can understand revenues, expenses, capital expense, net P&L, like a normal P&L, less CapEx, minus debt service, to see where will be our change in cash position is for 2024.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I understand what you're asking for.
Okay.
Yeah, It's just the difference, and I do what you do. It's the difference in presentation between commercial financial statements and government financial statements. And I like commercial, but I live with government.
Yep.
So I know what you're trying to achieve, and that's what I was trying to reconcile. The explanation for the enterprise, the expenditures with the 66 million now makes sense to me with that reserve and contingencies in there.
Plug number, yeah.
Plug numbers, so.
It's like 24 million, that plug number. Is that what you're talking about, Margaret, on?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Those are all my questions on this page.
Mike, did you have any other changes on the resolutions for the board?
Sorry, just the one that you had brought as well. That's on the back page, just to add the lottery. So when you guys get to that back page for the mill levy, we just added another line item that talks about the Conservation Trust Fund, which is on,
So it would be to add a $500,000 for the Conservation Trust Fund.
it's about your second paragraph down.
Is it, so, I'm trying to figure out where you guys are at.
Sorry, it's the resolution to set mill levies, Margaret,
Solution.
the last page. Second paragraph, we're talking,
Okay, I found it, so.
Okay.
Okay, resolution to set mill levies.
exactly,
Okay,
so that's
got it.
second paragraph, where it talks about the capital outlay is 60,183,982. We needed to add to the end of that and 500,000 for the Conservation Trust. And that should be all the changes.
Oh, I see it now, okay, and the Conservation Trust of 500,000.
Exactly.
Got it, okay, I will add that, and I have a quick question about that Conservation Trust Fund money that we get of 500. Do we have to spend it in the fiscal year in order to get it, or could we save it if we wanted to? But we have enough operational expenses that we have, or maintenance expenses that we need it. Silly question, I just wanted to know if we wanted to save it, could we? Not that we can, but, okay. Got it.
Any other questions?
I think we're on the approval for the resolution to adopt a budget, and
Yep.
we digress to the other two resolutions.
Correct. We are on the resolution to adopt the budget. That was the discussion. We have not wrapped that one up yet, so are there any other questions about adopting the budget?
I don't have any other questions, but I would ask that when we have the final board minutes, could all the numbers be changed so that it's not my pencil scratch, but a typed format? Like when whatever goes into the board minutes formally has the correct numbers. Like what I have here, what we have here.
Margaret, we'll get those changes made, and then we'll send out the clean version to all of the board via email, and we will make sure that those get in the board minutes correctly.
Got it, thank you, that's what I'm asking for, and so in a roundabout way, a clean version.
Yvonne, thank you for clarifying that for me. Any other discussion on the budget? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Looking for a resolution to appropriate sums of money.
Mr. President, I move Board of Directors, Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve a resolution to appropriate sums of money as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion?
So, just so that everyone has kind of my notes, do we have an updated version in our packets for this? So if we go to section 1.
This is what I have.
Is this section 1? Okay. So if we go to section 1, it says District Enterprise Fund. I think it should be District Enterprise and General Fund, right?
Governmental.
Or? Okay. Yep, I'm sorry, you're right, governmental. And then the capital outlay number is not 3.6 million, but it should be 3.6 million? Because then the other capital outlays that total that 5 million come from the Ice Center Fund and the Conservation Trust.
Sorry, so that 3 million figure, Margaret, is
Yeah.
through all the capital outlay items in the budget, the one that I presented, or you guys got the bound one today. So that's any capital that you guys approved back at September, that amount, plus it's all kinds of the line items that are in individual budgets throughout the budget. That's where you come up with the 3.6 of capital.
Okay. And then the debt services for our COPs
It's
and,
exactly, the 2 debt service pages, which is the COPs, then the lease,
okay,
and the possible of the Waterworld lease number is in there of $1 million as well in that budget.
and is the PNC lease in there too then?
All the leases are in there, yes.
Okay, all the
Well,
leases.
the PNC lease for the golf carts,
Yeah,
that is actually on the operations page, and it is in there.
okay,
Of 60, yeah, it's in there. And that's included with that 3.6. So you go through every single page and look at what capital outlay is for the line items, and that's what it comes up to.
got it. And then that, you alluded to that there's, from the last time we met, there is a new debt payment of $1 million for Waterworld, or?
We put a placeholder in, that was actually in the November
Okay,
budget that we actually kind of told you about as well. There was a $1 million placeholder for the new Waterworld concept.
and that's when we had the
Lease.
budget meeting at Sports Center, is that right? Is that the one where I was sick?
So we added the $1 million before the budget hearing in November.
Okay, okay, that, I
Again,
was
it's
trying to
a
reconcile-
placeholder if the board decides to move forward on the project information that we're working on with Waterworld.
Got it, and that's the project information from the project park. Okay, which I have an open question about that coincidentally. Okay, okay, that makes sense to me now, thank you.
Okay, one last question. Just in this process, in the resolutions, you have to put the debt on the books, but that debt would come with a capital expenditure. That capital expenditure to drive the $1 million debt payment is not in these numbers.
So it is not, again, we put the $1 million in as a placeholder right now because we don't know what the anticipated total cost of the project will be. We're hoping that $1 million would be a reasonable expectation of debt service, but we don't know. So that's why it's a $1 million placeholder at this point. Could be plus or minus, but we did not put the project in there yet because the board has not approved the project yet.
So you're doing one side of the,
We're
Someone that's used to
basically
balance
holding,
journal entries.
we're just basically holding funds to the side if we enter into a debt service arrangement to fund a project.
okay, because I would assume the project could be north of $10 million in order to have $1 million.
Yeah, if the board approves it, we'll do some supplemental appropriations
Okay.
for the actual project cost.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. Okay.
All right, I think maybe we're ready. All those in favor of the resolution to appropriate sums of money, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion to approve the Highland Hills Park and Rec District of the resolution to set mill levies.
I move that the Board of Directors of Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve the resolution to set mill levies as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second about the mill levies, setting the mill levies. Any questions?
I did have a question about the new the property tax legislation that passed at the end of the year. So from what I gather, based on what we're setting the mill levy at, that is similar to what it was last year, that the tax exemptions and deductions didn't have a material impact on the assessed values that we used to get, what were our assessed values? So we know what our fair values were. Do we know what the actual assessed values were?
Margaret, so I'm on another board, and so I got the statements this morning. The value, the taxable basis that the mill levy gets applied to for the neighborhood I live in went up 16%.
Yes.
So that district's gonna take in another 16% of revenue because of the value changes of the houses, net, whatever the Colorado legislative did. If you look at our numbers, our increase in tax revenue is $1,060,000 compared to last year, so that's approximately 15%. So we're in the same ballpark that the tax basis that the mill levy gets applied to went up about the same as the neighborhood I live in.
Got it. So that $9 million allocation reflects the increase in fair values that we all experience based on the 2022 numbers. Okay. Thank you, Mike. That makes sense.
Yeah, because I had to sign one of the mill levy things today, keeping the mill levy the same for that district as the prior year, even though I still get more revenue.
Yep.
Any other discussion? So all those in favor of approving the resolution to set the mill levies, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And I forgot to say aye, but I meant to say aye.
All right, looking for a motion to approve and change order with Rocky Mountain Turf.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Directors, Highland Hills Park and Recreation District approve change order for Rocky Mountain Turf Solutions in the amount of $262,887 for completion of, the outfall drainage work at Highland Hills Sports Complex, and authorize the Executive Director to execute the contract on behalf of the district.
Second.
Discussion?
Staff? Anything?
All those in favor of this contract, executing this contract? Did you have something?
Aye.
No,
He just asked staff, and I hit the button there.
Sorry.
I tried to put the details in there. So the expense was expected. We did not put it in the original contract with RMTS because A, we didn't know they did that kind of work. Also, the engineering drawings were not complete. So once the design was done, we could bid it out. And since they're a great contractor to work with, they're on site, we saved some money in mobilization costs. And they want to work, and they came in under the engineer's estimated cost. That's why we are recommending this.
Thanks, Alan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Looking for a motion to declare equipment surplus.
I move that the Board of Directors of Highland Hills Park and Recreation District declare surplus the provided list of items and authorize staff to dispose in a proper manner.
Second?
There we go.
Any questions?
Yes, please. Just out of these vehicles here, which ones are in the 2024 CapEx plan is replacement, and which ones are just obsolete, not being replaced?
So, Mike, we received 3 trucks right at the end of 2023 that were budgeted. So there's 3 of those, and there's, I believe, 3 more going into next year. And then we are reducing our truck count by a couple, just because we're, working some efficiencies there.
Okay. How do you normally, education-wise, dispose of these? Do you do a bidding process, post a notice?
Yep, so they go on government surplus.
Okay.
And so it's a pretty competitive environment. I think a lot of folks look for things there. And then people can bid on it. And then once we secure payment, they can take delivery.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor of staff to dispose of in a proper manner, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Hardwood flooring.
Margaret, there's not a Zamboni on that one, so.
I know that. That was the first thing I noticed when I looked at that.
Get out of here.
You could have bought the Zamboni.
Fly in here this time of year.
I could have no place to store it.
All right, we are at the Board of Directors open discussion, and Margaret asked for some time, and then also we added the discussion of additional maintenance funding from Mike.
We could go to the discussion of additional maintenance funding. I had 2 items. In 2023, we approved the design plans for the project park to the tune of $475,000. And I wanted to have an update on what that looked like and what that is. And have we spent all $475,000? And if not, if we have, what did that get us? And then if not, how much do we have left? And what are we planning to do with that? And then also, if you guys could provide an update on staffing. I think there was a director of marketing position that was open. And then Mike will be leaving us an update on a replacement for Mike as well. So those are the 2 additional open discussion items that I would have.
Okay, well, let me get you an update on what we've been up to at Waterworld in terms of the ride planning. So the board did approve an amount up to not to exceed $475,000 in June, so we've been busy with that. To answer the funds spent this year, we've spent about 150. In fact, we spent 150. That'll be the final this year. The budget reflects carrying the balance of that into 2024. We are anticipate maybe to track a little under there, but we'll see how everything comes together. In terms of the planning progress, we've been meeting frequently. We're going through some ride concepts, looking at a lot of different things, and we're starting to see the site plan now start to consolidate. And we're at the exciting point now where we're kind of getting that vision. So our intent, I believe, is to come back to you all next month with some updates and to be able to talk about it further. But there's been a lot of work done. ADG has been working diligently on that. We've been speaking with ride manufacturers and moving along.
Part of the concept was that there would be a pool there that might be able to serve as a replacement pool for swim lessons and stuff like that. Is that still part of the project?
Yeah, the site concept includes an LTS, a learn to swim pool, and that is part of the site complex.
The LTS, a what?
Learn to swim.
Learn to swim. Okay, that's an acronym that I just
Yeah,
learned
yeah,
right
learn
now.
to swim pool.
Thank you.
So we do have that presence in the site plan.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Skylar, do you want to do an update on the positions?
Sure. So I'll talk about the marketing director first. After an extensive recruitment process and very competitive, we selected our top candidate and she accepted the position and started today. Her name is Jenny Kramer, and I will bring her to the next board meeting so you can all meet her. And then for the finance director, unfortunately, Mike has turned in his resignation, and we're fortunate he gave a lot of lead time, so we've been able to begin recruitment for that position. We have conducted a handful of interviews, lost some time there with the holidays and things like that, but I anticipate that'll pick up very quickly here soon. We have also hired a recruiter for that position. That it's a national HR recruiter firm, so we're working with them to get some strong candidates to apply and interview for the position. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Can you give us any highlights about Jenny Kramer?
Yeah, we were really impressed with Jenny's background. She has primarily worked in casinos for marketing. Currently previously she worked at Ameristar up at Blackhawk.
Oh, cool.
She's also worked at the Grand Canyon Resort as well as MGM Grand in Las Vegas. So she has entertainment marketing background, and she just really did her research on Hyland Hills. She had a vision on what she wanted to accomplish in this position, so she's really hitting the ground running, and I'm very impressed with her so far.
Excellent, thanks.
Margaret, did you have anything else on that?
I do not. Those were my two comments.
Okay. And Mike, last meeting you asked to talk about some surplus, some additional maintenance funding.
Yeah, why don't we go ahead and table that until we get the final numbers for the 2024 budget, so we have a better understanding of our change in cash position for 2024, based on all the revisions that have run through?
I find that to be unreasonable. I'm teasing. Makes sense to me. Let's table that one for another month. So we'll add it to the agenda for next month?
Yes, please.
Okay.
And hopefully before then, we'll get all the board members will get an updated budget that's easy to understand, both from a for-profit perspective and a governmental perspective.
Yeah, and then do we want to maybe wait till we hear back from the strategic plan and where we should be targeting our maintenance funding as well?
That'll probably, I was thinking about this, let's get it on the discussion, then kind of make that action list. It says, here's if we get these things cleared off, then maybe let's allocate X number of dollars to additional maintenance.
And Margaret, that's my preference too, is to be real strategic about it. Take the information from the strategic plan, look at the whole big picture before we just allocate it out for something.
Okay, yeah, and maybe we'll do it in iterations. Okay.
Okay. Next question is part of open discussion is, the new development on the property along Federal, south of 80 is something, that huge.
The uplands, I think is what it's called.
What's it?
Uplands?
Uplands, okay. So it's no longer farmland. There was a sale that took place, which means it got rezoned to residential, which means it should enter the tax rolls when?
I don't believe it'll enter the tax rolls until the residences are done and purchased, and I'm looking at Allison to see if that's accurate, because there's going to be a development period. I don't know if we get tax off of that as it's being developed. It would have been exempt before because it was farm property.
Yeah, I think you're right. I would have to double check though, for exactly when that switch happens.
Yeah, because it's now undeveloped land,
Correct.
which
But
I
sold,
would assume is subject to property taxes.
right? It's a great question. Let us follow up and bring you back an answer at the next meeting.
Again, I'm all in, everyone should pay their fair share into.
So the question is, when will we see the property tax revenues from the uplands development?
Yes.
Okay,
Kick in, right?
yeah.
Okay. fit, marketing, again, I understand there was a void in the marketing department, and one way to obviously see that is usually every year at FIT, the first couple of weeks of January, there was more people there than ever before because of those New Year's resolutions, because these new members, there's been no increase in membership this year. So it's in Choose, Planet Fitness, I was getting flyers in the mail from them, but didn't get anything from Highland Hills to join FIT. So just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I know that we did some marketing to increase memberships. We have a free 7-day offer out there. So again, let us come back to you at the next meeting. It's interesting to hear you say there's no noticeable difference, because I would have expected there would be.
Yeah.
So let us follow up on that, Mike, and we'll come back at the next meeting with an update.
Okay. And then an advance request, if I could get an excused absence for the March 5th meeting, I will be out of town.
Mike, would you just send me a text as we get closer to that date?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll do an email.
Yeah, an email's fine.
Okay.
Just let me know somehow.
I am now.
Think I can remember to March 5th?
Okay, that's all I had on my list.
Anyone else? All right, Margaret, board meeting action recap.
Okay, so we're going to schedule a tour date for the sports complex when it's finished closer to March. We're going to get a timeline or deadline for the grant application that is out there for the Berkeley Park project. Yvonne's going to provide us with a town hall quarterly schedule, potential schedule, and then we're going to email a clean version of the budget numbers in all three of those resolutions that had numbers in them. And then we're going to get an answer to the question of when do we expect to see the property tax revenues from the uplands? And then an update on the marketing plan for FIT. That's what I have. Did I get it all?
I think you did. So with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.